Most of you listening to this have seen a television show or a game show called The Match Game. Haven't you? You've seen The Match Game. The Match Game is a game in which you are trying to match up with a partner and guess what it is that they might have said or how they might have said it or what response they might have had. And the more matches that you can have, the more likely you have that you're going to win. What I'd like to suggest here for the next few moments is that you play the match game with me. But rather than trying to match up with a partner to win a prize, I'd like you to think in terms of matching up to the field of intention, to the source, matching up with it. I'm coming up with 4 categories here of the ways that we talk to ourselves. The first is to put our thoughts, our self-talk, on what is missing in our life. Okay, this is an obstacle. If you think about what's missing in your life, and what you think about is what expands, then what's missing in your life will continue to show up in your life, even though you're upset about the fact that it's missing. Because what we think about is what expands. So that our way of changing this around is to match up and stop putting our focus on what's missing. Anytime you talk to somebody on the telephone, any relative of yours, and explain to them about what's missing in your life, you are attracting more of what's missing in your life. So if you talk about not having enough money, if you talk about the person that you're married to as not providing you with what it is that you think you're entitled to be provided with, if you think what's missing is that the right home that you'd like to live in, if what's missing in your life is that you don't have the right job, if what's missing is that your children don't respect you, whatever it is, if you understand that highly functioning people who are connected to Source never, ever talk about what's missing in their life. They talk about what they intend to create and manifest in your life, because they know that the more talk that you have about what's missing, the more what's missing will continue to attract and show up in your life, even though you despise the fact that it's missing. So here are a few examples of the match game based upon the idea of not thinking about what's missing. This is what I call a no match. I don't have enough money. This is something you hear a lot of people say, I don't have enough money. Here's a match with intention on the same subject. I intend to attract unlimited abundance into my life. Instead of focusing and saying, I don't have enough money, I intend to attract whatever abundance I want into my life. Unlimited. I intend to attract that. Now you might say, well, that's foolish. But if you shift and put your attention on not having enough, and people will say over and over again, yes, but what about all the people who live in the world, who live in very poor conditions and who live in starvation and so on? Who do you think needs to hear this message the most? And you cannot attract abundance into your life. You can't feel poor enough or become poor enough to resolve the problems of those who are attracting very little money into their lives. You can't do it. And even governments can't do it. They try to do it. They try to take money from people who are good at attracting energy into their lives and take it in and redistribute it and give it to people who don't attract very much into their life. And we've created governments that do this all over the planet. But the problem is that the people who don't have enough attracting into their lives continue to not attract enough into their lives. And the people who are good at attracting things into their life will continue to do that. I've heard it once said that you could take all of the money in the world and put it on several 747s and fly it all over the planet and just release it. And within a few years, it would all be back in the same places that it was before you started that. Because money is nothing more than an energy system. And those people who are good at attracting it into their lives are going to continue to be good at attracting it into their lives, even if you take it all away from them and give it to people who aren't. You're still going to find that the people who aren't are going to be people who just simply don't have enough. And it will be gone. And I've had many, many examples of this in my own life, with family and with friends and so on, where I have been able to attract unlimited abundance into my life, ever since I was a little boy living in an orphanage. I've always been able to attract abundance into my life. And when I tried giving it away to family members and so on, and I've bought them homes and given them money and supported them and so on, and they still never have enough. And they keep saying, well, you're just so lucky. You just keep attracting more and attracting more. But I believe that I have the capacity to attract abundance into my life. I absolutely know this. And therefore, I act upon that. And when you act upon that, you attract it and create it into your life. And if you are living on a scarcity consciousness model, if that's what you believe, then it doesn't matter how much somebody else gives to you or how much you hand them. Because it's not about how much you have, it's about what kind of energy you attract into your life. And if you are a believer that the world is a place that isn't going to provide for you, then you're going to continue to attract that. Because we have to change the energy system. We have to change the match, the way that we match. Here's a no match. My partner is grouchy and boring. Now here we're talking about what's missing in our life. My partner is grouchy and boring. Here's a match. I intend to focus my thoughts on what I love about my partner. Match, no match. A match with intention, a match with the field of intention, you don't put your thoughts on what's missing. You put your attention on what is and what you love about someone. Because your relationships with everyone are not in the other person, they are in your mind. You can never get behind the eyeballs of your partner and become your partner. You can only process them with your thoughts. If your thoughts are on what's missing about them and what you don't like about them, that will define your relationship. If you can instead shift your thoughts off of what you don't like and onto what is there and what you do love, then that will define your relationship. And that's particularly great advice for your relationships with your children. Because you can always divorce your partner if they have too much stuff that's missing. But you don't divorce your children. And your children, when you put your attention on what you love about your children and convey that, instead of continuously conveying to them what's missing and what they ought to have been and what they should be, then you're in a no match. I'm not as attractive as I'd like to be. Match. I am perfect in the eyes of God, a divine manifestation of the process of creation. There's no such thing as unattractive. And I am perfect in the eyes of God. I see myself as an attractive being. I don't compare myself. That's the source from which you emanated. Again, we're focusing on what's missing. No match. I don't get noticed enough. What's missing? I don't get noticed enough. Match. I'm content with myself, and I don't need to be noticed in order to be happy. Such a subtle difference in the way that you process it. No match. I don't have enough vitality and energy. Match. I am a part of the ebb and flow of the limitless source of all of life. I am a part of that. I have as much energy as I choose to have. So that's the first. The obstacles that we're talking about here are putting our thoughts on what's missing instead of on what I intend to materialize into my life. The second thing is to put our thoughts on the circumstances of our life. If you think about what is, and you don't like what is, you will continue to attract more of what is into your life. Highly functioning people who are connected to intention never put their thoughts on what is if they don't like what is. Instead, they shift to putting their attentions on what they intend to create. You don't go around thinking about all of the things that have happened to you in your life or what is going on in your life and keep thinking about that unless you want more of it into your life. And here's the match game on changing the way we think. No match. I hate this place we're living in. It gives me the creeps. Match. I can see in my mind our new home, and I intend to be living in it within 6 months. Now, you may say, well, that's absurd. I can't find my new home, and that's called resistance. The moment that you say it's absurd, the moment that you say it can't happen, the moment that you say you can't just shift out of it with your thoughts, every single one of those thoughts is a thought of the ego. It is not a thought of the divine mind. The divine mind says unlimited abundance. You came from a universal field of unlimited abundance. You can attract and have anything that you place your attention on. Your body, your mind says, but I've never done that before, so therefore I can't do that anymore, and I can't have the house. And I can't tell you how many letters I've received from people over the years since I've been doing this kind of work, from people who said, I found my dream house by picturing it in my mind and saying it was just going to show up. I didn't have the funding. I wasn't able to afford to pay, whatever it is that I wanted to pay. And somehow the funding came on. The right person showed up. I was able to get the loan. I was able to go to talk to the person at the bank, and so on. No match. When I see myself in the mirror, I despise the fact that I'm nearsighted and out of shape. Match. I am placing this drawing of how I intend to look right here on my mirror. This is how I intend to look. I have a picture of myself at a certain time when I looked a certain way, or I have a drawing of myself. Rather than putting your attention on what is, that is the fact that I don't like the fact that I've let my body get out of shape, and putting my attention on that, because every time you think a thought of, I don't like the fact that my body is out of shape, you continue to attract more of your body being out of shape. If, on the other hand, you formalize a picture and surround yourself, contemplate yourself as surrounded by the conditions which you intend to manifest, sure enough, you'll start acting upon that picture. There's nothing else that you can do. You match up with this field of intention. You came here as a perfect being from a source of well-being. No match. I dislike the work I'm doing and the fact that I'm not appreciated. So now you're talking about what is. This is an obstacle. Match. I'll act upon my inner intuitive impulses to create the work or job of my dreams. I will create the work and job of my dreams. I intend to create it. I may not know how, but I'm going to contemplate myself as surrounded by this thought in my mind that I am going to attract for myself. And you know something? The universe will respond to you with that. And if you say, oh, that's ridiculous, you're right. It is. And it won't work, because that's called resistance. No match. I hate the fact that I'm sick so often, and I always seem to be getting colds. That's a way of putting your attention on what is. Match. I am divine health. I intend to act in healthy ways and attract the power to strengthen my immune system in every way I can. I see myself as health, rather than going to the universal source and saying, heal me, because the universal source doesn't know about anything being missing. It can't react to that. It'll just reconfirm your belief in shortages. No match. I'm tired of being in a state of conflict and fighting with my family all the time. Match. Everyone in my life is here for a reason. I intend to love them regardless of how they act towards me. You see, you put your attention on the way things always have been. That's the third one. The way things always have been. Now we've talked about what's missing and what is. Here's another self-talk obstacle. Thinking about the way things always have been. I love the poem of Omar Khayyam, the Rubaiyat. The moving finger writes, and having writ, moves on. Nor all thy piety nor wit can lure it back to cancel half a line, nor all thy tears wash out one word of it. 1,000 years ago that was written. Here's one of the ways that we think, and these are all resistant thoughts. No match. I've always been poor. I was raised on shortages and scarcity. This is the way it's always been. Match. I intend to attract wealth and prosperity in unlimited abundance. You got to just say it. I've been saying it since I was a little kid. And now, at 63, it's absolutely absurd. It's coming in so fast that I can't even give it away fast enough, and I can't even contribute it enough, and I can't even do enough with it. My biggest issues about abundance are, how can I stop the flow? There's just too much. And I know that sounds absurd, and I know listening to this you might think, well, I got a place where you can do something with it. I'll probably get 40 million letters on that. But the fact is, it doesn't make any difference if I did give it to you. If you believe that the only way you can get it is by having someone else give it to you, you're still believing in shortages. You're still believing that you don't have the capacity yourself to attract it into your life. When you let go of any belief system that you have around what always has been, just because something always has been is not a reason for it to continue. But if your thoughts are on what always has been, you have created resistance to connecting to intention. No match. We've always fought in this relationship. How many times I've heard that? Match. I'm going to work at being peaceful and not allowing anyone to bring me down. That's my intention. No match. My children have never shown me any respect. It's the way it's always been. Match. I intend to teach my children to respect all of life, and I'll treat them in the same way. That's my intention. You say, yes, but you don't know my children. And instantly you create resistance. And the minute that you create resistance, you stop the flow of allowing. You stop summoning divine source. No match. I've always been non-athletic and clumsy. I think I inherited it from my mother. Match. I am perfectly capable of being anything I place my attention on. And I now see myself as beautifully graceful. That's how I see myself. That's what I intend to manifest into my life. It has nothing to do with what always has been. If you think about what always has been, and what always has been is something that you despise, don't be surprised if what always has been continues to keep showing up in your life. And finally, no match. I can't help feeling this way. It's my nature. I've always been this way. Boy, how many times you've heard that. Match. I am a divine creation, capable of thinking like my Creator. I intend to substitute love and kindness for feelings of inadequacy. It's my choice. So that's the third. What's missing, what is, what always has been, and finally, the fourth category of thoughts that are obstacles is thinking about what they want for you. Putting your attention, your thoughts on what other people have designated your life to be. And there's a lot of that. I'm going to write a book someday called Your Friends Are God's Way of Apologizing for Your Relatives. Because so much of this is what our relatives have. And so many times people say to me, but my relatives expect this from me. My parents expect that from me. My mother thinks this way. My grandparents have done this, and they find themselves thinking about and complaining about and contemplating themselves as surrounded by conditions which other people have imposed upon them and wondering why those conditions keep showing up and showing up and showing up in their life. And one of the final chapters in Power of Intention is, it is my intention to be at peace with all of my relatives. It is my intention. That's my intention. I'm going to walk through the rest of my life, and whatever relatives I have, no matter who they are, I am going to be at peace with them. So here are some matches or no matches about this. No match. I'm so annoyed at my family. They just don't understand me, and they never have. You think like that, and you talk like that, and you put that energy out into the world, and you continue to attract people in your family who don't understand you and wondering why they keep showing up. A match for this is, I love my family. They don't see things my way, and I don't expect them to. I'm totally focused on my own intentions, and I send them love. That's my intention. No match. I make myself sick trying to please everyone else. Match. I'm on purpose and doing what I signed up to do in this lifetime. No match. I feel so unappreciated by those I serve, it sometimes makes me cry. How many times I've heard that, particularly mothers and their children. I do what I do because it's my purpose and my destiny to do so. It's my choice. I don't do it to be appreciated. I do what I do because this is what I signed up for. And if I don't want to do it any longer, I'll stop. No match. No matter what I do or say, it seems as if I can't win. Match. I do what my heart tells me to do with love, kindness, and beauty. And finally, no match. They never stop criticizing and complaining. Match. I intend to give full expression to my essence. You can see that all of this self-talk is one in which we find ourselves using our process of thinking, our thought systems, which are nothing more than the energy system that we have for attracting what we want into our life. And we've been conditioned, almost destroyed, by this continuous energy that we place in our inner world on what always has been, on what's missing, on what others think or say, on what expectations are laid out for me, and they become our inner sort of dialogue that we have with ourselves all the time, and then we're not understanding that we live in a universe of attraction. And in a universe of attraction, we are attracting the very thing that we are putting our attention on that we don't want to show up. And shifting out of that is shifting into a place of of divinity and learning how to change those thoughts around. The first thing is always, I want to feel good. I choose to feel good. I choose to feel God. I choose to feel God. I'm not going to allow these obstacles anymore. I'm going to work on my self-talk. I'm not going to allow myself to be in an energy system in which I'm attracting more of what I don't want. I just won't. No matter what results seem to continue to show up, I'm just not going to allow myself to do that. And you start changing them. I can tell you another story about my daughter Summer, who is 20. She loves to work with horses. It's her love, it's her life. And she was at a job out at one of the barns where she was working, giving lessons to little children, but she felt very much unappreciated, and so she left the barn, and she was very upset, and things weren't going her way, and she called me up and we were talking about it, and I said, Summer, working with horses is your life. It's what you love to do. You're always the happiest when you're on a horse, and you know this. And she says, Dad, she said, I read The Horse Whisperer. I saw the movie. One day to me when she was about 17, she said, I am a horse whisperer. She said, I understand horses. I can talk to them. I can communicate with them. And when I go out there and I see her with her long blonde hair flowing, and I see her riding through the fields out there where she rides and gives the lessons and does her shows and all of that, she's at peace. She's one with God. She's on purpose in her life. And especially when she shares this and extends it to other people and gives lessons to the other children, especially the little children. And she had lost all of that, and she was working part-time as a waitress and just very unhappy with it. She said, I wasn't making enough money, things weren't working out, and again, I give the same lesson, I said it to all of my kids, I say it all the time. Summer, I said, honey, contemplate yourself as surrounded by the conditions which you intend to produce. Just keep that thought there, I said, and then it's not about whether you are connected to intention. You always are connected to intention. You were intended here from this field of energy. Everything was. The question isn't whether you are connected. The question is, are you ready to reconnect yourself more fully? Are you ready? And when you say yes to that, when you say yes to life, see, the answer to how is yes. The answer to how do I do it is always yes. Saying yes to life. That's the title of a book that I think is very, very well done. The answer to how is yes. You don't have to know how. You just have to say yes. And I kept saying that to her. Contemplate yourself. See it. The law of flotation over and over again. The same stuff that I've been saying here to you. And she called me up the very next day. She said, Dad, she said, I've driven by the same spot for the last 3 or 4 months. And I never noticed there's a telephone pole there. And there was a sign on it, and I was driving by, and I stopped to read the sign. Now, the sign's been there for months, and the sign said, looking for someone who would like to work with children, giving lessons for horses on weekends or whatever. Someone who loves horses, and this whole long thing. And she said, I read that, and I picked up the phone, and I called them, and they offered me a job over the telephone, paying me double what I was getting before. And the sign has been there, but she wasn't ready. She wasn't saying yes. She was contemplating herself as surrounded by conditions which she didn't like, and they kept showing up in her life. When she changed her mind and changed her thoughts, and you can do this with anything, whoever you are, whatever addictions you're suffering with in your life, whatever struggles you're having in your jobs or in your relationships, whatever it is that you think is missing in your life, you're just not ready. You are a divine creation. There's no accident in you being here. You're connected to this thing called source energy. You've just got a very corroded link. Say yes to it. Those are the 4 major ways that we think in our lives. One of the other obstacles that we have is what I call our energy system. And what is our energy system? Everything has a frequency. I've written about a book that is a very powerful book. It's called The Power versus Force. And it's written by David Hawkins. If you haven't read it, I urge you to read it. It's published by Hay House, written by a man named David Hawkins, a medical doctor. And I've been unabashedly promoting this book wherever I go, on television and in tape series and lectures and so on, because I think there's just something so grand to learn from it. And one of the things that he speaks about in this book is calibrating energy. And this is a medical doctor who's spent most of his adult life, 29 years, in studying how to calibrate energy. And I've talked about it in another set of tapes I did before called It's Never Crowded Along the Extra Mile. And I go into it in much more depth. But what Hawkins speaks about here is what kind of energy system do you live in? And what level do you calibrate? Everything can be measured. Every thought that we have has an energy to it. My son, Sans, who's now 16, last summer we were all on Maui, and I hear playing over the sound system in our home there on Maui, I hear this really vile language and this rap kind of gangster kind of stuff coming out over the intercom. And I said, Sans, what is going on? What is that music and what is that? He said, oh, Dad, that's really cool. Man, that's really, that's really hip. That's really in, man. I said, get with it, and he's pushing me around a little bit. He's big now. He's about 6'1" and thinks that he can get back at me. He's always said when he beats me at arm wrestling, he says, paybacks are hell, aren't they, Dad? Because I've been beating him for his whole life and throwing him around and wrestling with him and so on. And I said, Sans, go get that CD and bring it in here. So he went in and he got the CD. And I said, set it on the kitchen table there. Take that banana. There's an organic banana in there. Take that banana and put it next to your heart with one hand. And take your other arm, your left arm, and he's left-handed. And I said, just make a fist. And I'm going to push down while you are pushing that banana into your heart. I'm going to push down on your arm. And I started pushing down on his arm with 2 fingers. And when he held the banana, I couldn't budge him. He's so strong. I couldn't budge him at all. Just like really, really strong. Okay. So I said, okay, Sans, now take the banana and put it aside and take the CD that has the language and the message of hatred and killing and so on in the lyrics and even the profanity in it. I said, and just put it next to your heart. I said, and he put it, and all the kids were gathered around, and he said, oh, this is going to be so cool, Dad's going to get him. And he put his arm out, and I said, now make a fist. Now resist me as hard as you can. And he put his arm out, and he resisted, and I pushed down with 2 fingers, his arm went right down. He had no strength. Everything in the universe has energy that can be calibrated. Every thought that you have, the thoughts of shame, the thoughts of anger, the thoughts of fear, the thoughts of depression, the thoughts of worry, are all thoughts that can be measured in terms of whether they strengthen you or whether they weaken you. So everything is an energy system. The way that your home is and so on. Now, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but I want to just go through this as the second obstacle to connecting to intention. And the question is, how do you raise your energy level? Here's a question that Anthony DeMello posed in his book called 1 Minute Wisdom. Question to a prophet. Why is everyone here so happy except me? Answer. Because they have learned to see goodness and beauty everywhere, said the master. Why don't I see goodness and beauty everywhere? He then responded. Because you cannot see outside of you what you fail to see inside of you. If you can't see it inside of you, you can't change the energy system that you live in. Now, what I've produced here is what I call a mini program for raising your energy level. So the first is becoming aware of your thoughts. Become conscious of all of your thoughts. That's the first thing in this mini program for changing the energy level that you live in. And you want to take all of your thoughts off of what's missing, what is, what always has been, and what others want for you. That match game that we just played. All of your thoughts have to go off of that. And whenever you find themselves on that, how do you get out of it? 5 words. I want to feel good. I intend to feel good. Meaning, I intend to feel God. Meaning, I intend to eliminate all resistance. Meaning, I am attracting into my life what I want and what I intend to have rather than what always has been or what used to be or what others want from me. So first, become conscious of your thoughts. Second, make meditation a regular practice in your life. I've written a little book called Getting in the Gap. And there's a CD at the back of it that teaches you how to make conscious contact with God. It's called Repeating the Sound That's in the Name of God. And it's called Japa. I've spoken about it in other places. I've been teaching this meditation for the last 7 or 8 years. And I've tried to answer all the questions about meditation, how to go about doing it, and provide a CD for it in Getting in the Gap. But essentially, the reason that we have to practice meditation and quietness in our lives is because it's the only way that we can make conscious contact with our source. Our source is a source that cannot be divided. There's no place that it is not in this world of the material. See, everything is divided into male, female, up, down, life, death, right, wrong, east, west, good, bad, north, south. All of these are divisions, dichotomies. I used to teach a course in metaphysics at the university years and years ago, and I used to tell people, anyone who can bring in a magnet and just bring in the north pole of a magnet and not have the south pole with it gets an A in the course. And no one was ever able, because no matter how thin you would slice it, there's always the dichotomy, there's always the reverse, until you get to silence. And silence is God's one and only voice, said Herman Melville. And you can't divide silence. You cut silence in half, and what do you get? More silence. And you cut it in half again, and you get more silence. Same with God. So that when you go into silence, and you repeat the sound of God, and if you look at the book of John and open it up in the beginning, it says, in the beginning was the Word. And the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The repetition of the sound of the name of God as a mantra is how we attract into our lives whatever it is that we like. I've written about it, as I said, in Getting in the Gap and Manifest Your Destiny. I've put tapes out about it in the past. I just want you to understand that making it a daily practice is a way of raising your energy level. Also, become conscious of the food you eat. You can take any food, put it next to your heart, do a muscle test, and determine whether it will strengthen or weaken you. And if you take alcohol, just to hold a glass of scotch next to your heart, and then put your arm out and have someone test, and you'll find out that it will always weaken you. The same is true of so many of the toxins that we place into our body. And you can find out, you can even muscle test various vitamins and various things that you're taking. So become aware of the foods you eat. Retreat from all low energy substances. Just retreat from them. Today I'm a camel. And a camel is an animal who gets up every morning on his knees. He goes to bed every night on his knees. And he goes 24 hours without a drink. I didn't quit drinking because I had a drinking problem in the sense of it was in charge of my life. I've never had DUIs. I've never had let alcohol interfere with my life. I just had 2 or 3 or 4 beers every night after I would run 15 or 18 miles, and it became a part of my life. And one of the great teachers in my life said, if you really want to go to the places that you are destined to go to, he said, you have to retreat from all substances that weaken you. And he said, I urge you to live in total sobriety. Total sobriety. And I walked away from it. And I had been drinking 2 or 3 beers every day for years and years, but I walked away from it because I really respected the idea that I wanted to treat my body like a holy temple, which is what it is. It's what it emanated from. It emanated from holiness. I have a holy relationship with the source. And this body is that which houses my source. And I encourage you to retreat from those kinds of substances, any of them, particularly things like tobacco, and particularly things like even prescription drugs. We're now getting to a place where prescription drugs are being just thrown at us, almost, I don't know if you've noticed, you probably couldn't help it. It's not an accident that the news is sponsored by antidepressants. Well, because all you have to do is watch the evening news on any one of the channels. They'll give you all the depressing things in the world that you should be thinking about, and then they'll give you for the next 2 or 3 minutes reasons how to overcome it, and then they'll give you some more depression, and then they'll give you more reasons. And now we've got, they're advertising drugs, and they don't even tell you what they're for. They just say, call your doctor. You may need this purple pill. You need this green pill. You need the orange pill. I saw a commercial for a product. I won't mention its name on here, but there's a guy gets up in the morning and he goes out and gets some clams. And he's just walking along the beach and he's getting clams and he's feeling really good and he's digging for clams and he walks away with this bucket of clams, the whole commercial, and then they name this particular drug that he's getting. And it's like, call your doctor, you may need this. It's like, what is the drug for? Is it to help you get clams? If you can't get any clams in your life, I got a drug for you. And I saw one the other day about something, and they didn't even say what it was. It was one of these, like Viagra kind of drug. I recognized the name from it because I remember what those blue pills look. No, I don't know anything about those blue pills. Well, they didn't even tell you what it was. They just said, call your doctor. And there's some guy just smiling on there, you know? Call your doctor, you may need this. And there's another one with a famous skater, Dorothy Hamill. She's out there, you might want to go skating. Here's another. And you can't even buy these things. You can't just go to the store and say, I need some clams. Will you give me one of these? You have to go to your doctor. And so they're in bed with the huge drug companies, in bed with all of these, promoting and constantly in a state, full-page ads you know what a full-page ad in Time Magazine or USA Today or Newsweek or U.S. News and World Report, you know what those cost? Sometimes there's like 4 full-page ads for just a particular drug to go to your doctor and ask for. Have you noticed how bombarded we are now getting with this stuff? We've become a culture of people who are looking for the solution in pills and so on. Become conscious of the music that you listen to. You've heard of the Mozart effect, I'm sure. The Mozart effect is when children are in rooms and Mozart's music, which is divinely inspired music by one of the great creative geniuses of all time, is playing in the background, that children are much more inclined to be more productive and to work better and to be more alert and more focused, just because the music is playing in the background, versus very harsh kind of rap, kind of gangster kind of stuff that lowers energy. All you have to do is do a muscle test. Children sitting in front of video games on a regular basis, playing violent games where there are explosions going on and so on, are a part of an energy system that weakens them. And you don't have to take my word for it or think that I'm supporting one thing over another or putting anything down. Just test it. Test it yourself. Do the muscle test. Read Power versus Force. Learn about how you can determine whether something is strengthening or weakening you. Even the foods like artificial substances. Every diet soda that you drink is something that is weakening rather than strengthening. It changes and lowers your energy. These are all obstacles to connecting to intention. Become aware of the energy levels of your home environment. Paintings, crystals, statues, spiritual passages, books, magazines, even the colors on your walls and the arrangement of your furniture all create energy into which you are catapulted for at least half of your waking life. Be aware of it. Be conscious of the energy of your home. You know, you can walk past a prayer. The prayer of St. Francis has hung in our home for so many years, because just walking past it, holding the words, take the prayer, hold it next to your heart, see whether it strengthens or weakens you. When my children would walk down the hallway past this prayer, people would say, well, they've never stopped to read that. What do you have it there for? I said, they don't have to stop and read it. The fact that it's there, the energy from it alone, everything has energy. Every word that you have. Everything is energy, and raising your energy system and raising your energy level. I say reduce your exposure to the very low energy of commercial and cable television. The average child in America sees 12,000 murders simulated before his 14th birthday in his own living room or his own bedroom. Become aware of what you watch and what you allow into your home. All that I've been speaking about here has been about the obstacles that we have to connecting to intention. And the obstacles are always about what we think about and how much we're bombarded with it. When you find yourself having news stories about how many people were killed in another place in the world and how horrible it was, say to yourself, I want to feel good. I want to feel good. How can I feel good when I'm watching this? And will your feeling bad make those things stop? Because if it does, then feel bad. But the fact is that the better you feel, the closer you get to God, and the closer enough of us get to God, to good, the more likely we will create a world in which there won't even be people to go and participate in these acts of hatred and killing and wars and so on. We'll create a world in which there will be no soldiers. As Jackson Browne speaks about in one of his songs, I want to know who the men in the shadows are, who are always telling other people to go off and to fight and to die and to kill, while they're all being protected. And every time I see one of the members of the government, whether it's secretaries of defense or secretaries or assistants or whoever they are, all talking about how terrible it is. Isn't it awful that so many more people, and these are the kinds of things that happen. And I always think, but you're very safe and you have bodyguards, and it's not even a concern for you. It's a horrific tragedy for everybody who loses one of those people. And whether it's people who are called the enemy, or whether it's the soldiers that we send, these are all tragedies. These are all low energies. Don't subject yourself to them. Work at it being in a world and creating a world where you feel good. Become aware of the energy of your acquaintances and your friends and your extended family. Who do you hang out with? Become aware of the energy of the places that you go. Bars, places where there's a lot of smoke, places where there's a lot of alcohol, places where there's a lot of darkness are low energies in your life. Being in places of very high energy is something that will raise the energy level at which you continue to vibrate. Monitor your activities and where they take place. Spend more time in nature. Become conscious of where you subject yourself, the kind of friends you subject yourself to, the kind of language that you listen to, the kinds of energy that you attract into your life. So that's a mini program for raising your energy level. The final of these obstacles is what I call the ego. And I don't need to spend a whole lot of time on this because we've talked about it already. But I want to share with you what the ego is. And again, remember, it has those 6 components. The belief system, I am what I have, what I do, what others think of me. I am separate from everyone else. I'm separate from God, and I'm separate from what is missing in my life. It's like what we want to do is see what we can do about reducing the influence of the ego. And I'm going to give you 7 pointers on that, and then we're going to close out for today. But listen to these words, defining the weaknesses of the ego. An observation in the Course in Miracles. You've heard me describe what it is, and it is a major obstacle to your connecting to intention, a major obstacle. In fact, it is the obstacle because it is an illusion. This fragment of your mind, says the Course, is such a tiny part of it that could you but appreciate the whole, you would see instantly that it is like the smallest sunbeam to the sun, or like the faintest ripple on the surface of the ocean. In its amazing arrogance, this tiny sunbeam has decided that it is the sun. This almost imperceptible ripple hails itself as the ocean. Think how alone and frightened is this little thought, this infinitesimally small illusion, holding itself apart against the universe. Do not accept this little fenced-off aspect of yourself as yourself. The sun and the ocean are as nothing beside what you are. Isn't that beautiful? That's a Course speaking on the ego. Like this little tiny sunbeam, in contrast with the sun, declares itself to be the sun. And this little ripple on the ocean declares itself as the ocean itself. That's the ego talking. And here's what it suggests on how to rid yourself of it. If you will lay aside the ego's voice, however loudly it may seem to call, if you will not accept its petty gifts that give you nothing that you really want, if you will listen with an open mind that has not told you what salvation is, then you will hear the mighty voice of truth, quiet in power, strong in stillness, and completely certain in its messages. Completely certain in its messages. The ego has a very strong grip on us. As much as our self-talk and our energy system keeps us from connecting to intention, our ego is constantly telling us, don't buy this. In fact, as you're listening to this right now, it's telling you, be very cautious about this. You know, there's a lot of stuff in there that really isn't true, and there's an endless stream of reasons why you shouldn't really buy into this. The ego's a very strong combatant. But I have just sort of outlined the 7 things that I think we need to do, and they're very brief. Here's what we do to overcome the impact of ego as the 3rd obstacle to connecting to intention. 1, stop being offended. Stop being offended. The person who is connected to Source doesn't know how to be offended. And there are people in the world who are constantly looking for occasions to be offended. And you hardly ever disappoint yourself. People who are looking for reasons why things are not right. I love this story. about people who are constantly looking for reasons to be offended. A New York woman was at her East Side hairdresser's getting her hair styled prior to a trip to Rome with her boyfriend. She mentioned the trip to the hairdresser, who responded, "Rome? Why would anyone want to go to Rome? It's crowded, it's dirty, and worse yet, it's full of Italians. You're crazy to go to Rome. So how are you going to get there?" "Well, we're flying on Continental Airlines," was the reply. "We got a great rate." Continental? It's a terrible airline. Their planes are old, their flight attendants are ugly, and they're always late. "So where are you going to stay while you're in Rome?" "Well, we'll be at this exclusive little place over on Rome's left side called Teste." "Don't go any further. I know that place." Everybody thinks it's going to be something special and exclusive, but it's really a dump. It's the worst hotel in the whole city. The rooms are small, the service is surly, and they're way, way overpriced. "So what are you going to do when you get there?" "Well, we're going to go see the Vatican, and hopefully we're going to see the Pope." "Yeah, right. You and a million other people trying to see him. He'll look like the size of an ant. Boy, good luck on this lousy trip of yours. You're sure going to need it." You ever meet people like this? So a month later, the woman comes back for her hair appointment. The hairdresser asked her about her trip. All smiles, she said it was absolutely wonderful. Not only did we arrive on time in a brand new jet, but it was overbooked, and they bumped us up to first class. The food and the wine were wonderful. I had a handsome 28-year-old steward who waited on me hand and foot. And the hotel, fabulous. They just finished a $5 million remodeling job, and now it's a jewel, the finest hotel in the city. They, too, were overbooked, so they apologized and gave us their owner's suite at no extra charge. "Well," said the hairdresser, "I know you didn't get to see the Pope." "Well," she said, "that's the weirdest part of all. Actually, we were quite lucky, for as we toured the Vatican, a Swiss guard tapped me on the shoulder and explained that the Pope likes to personally meet some of the visitors. If I'd just be so kind as to step into his private room and wait, the Pope would personally greet me." Well, sure enough, 5 minutes later, the Holy Father himself walked through the door and shook my hand. And I knelt down, and he spoke a few words to me. It was so wonderful. "Really?" said the hairdresser. "Well, what did he say?" "Oh, he said, 'Where'd you get that lousy hairdo?'" Don't look for occasions to be offended. And don't ever allow yourself to be offended. Being offended is a weakness of the ego. And you can find all kinds of reasons, and right here in this room. I mean, some of you, the way you dress to come to an event like this, it's really disgusting. And that hair of yours, please. I mean, you can do a lot better than that, you know? And those colors, they don't match at all. And that jewelry, I don't know what you were thinking, you know? It's like, and you hear people go through their life doing exactly this, always finding reasons to be offended. 2, let go of your need to win. Let go of the need to win. Letting go of the need to win is really it's a huge obsession in our country and in our world. The idea that if I get more points than you do, not only am I better, and not only are you a loser, but it makes me more important. Somehow we've got this belief system in the ego. But the problem with the ego and defeating others and having to win is that your performance or somebody else's performance determines whether or not you feel worthy or not. And always that's giving up your power. 3, let go of your need to be right. Just let go of it. Do you know how many arguments could be saved in marriages if you just let go of your need to be right? You know, that's a good point. I never thought of it before. Thanks. I'll give it some thought. I appreciate it. What a way to respond instead of, "What are you talking about? You don't even know what you're saying." Now, how can, and you hear, and I see I can see it when I meet people. 5 minutes having dinner with them, 5 minutes, I can see this need to be right, the need to win and to make someone else wrong continuously. And it's going on all the time over nothing, over just trivial little things. Like he said this, no, he said that. Like it's really important whether he said this or whether he said that. It was $25. It wasn't. It was $24. I remember specifically it was only $24. No, it was $25. No, it was $24. You never get anything right. On we go with trivialities. I'm in that situation, said, whatever it was, it's okay. Just let go of your need to be right. It's those words that I talked about earlier in one of my earlier programs. All you have to do is say these words. You're right about that. Boy, I'll tell you, it just ends so many struggles and so many difficulties. Good point. You're right about that. 4, let go of your need to be superior. Let go of your need to be better than someone else. You came from a source of energy that is expressive and expansive and receptive to all. That was the source from which you emanated. Anytime you take on the belief system that you are better than somebody else. See, true nobility is not about being better than anybody else. It's about being better than you used to be. Just being better than you used to be. And I can say that standing up here in front of you today, that I'm not better than one person here in this room, but I'm better than I used to be in virtually every dimension of my life. As a father, as a mate, as a teacher, as a human being. I know that I'm better than I used to be. I even made an apology in this book, Power of Intention. Many years ago, I wrote a book called Pulling Your Own Strings, back in 1977. I made a statement in there that I thought was cute. I said, when you want to return something, if you want to be victimized, don't go to a clerk, because a clerk is a jerk. And I thought it was a cute little phrase, and I didn't really mean the person themselves was a jerk. I really meant that the person that is the clerk cannot get it done for you if you want to exchange it or whatever. Go to someone who has authority. But I said it in those terms. And I apologized then, and I apologize now to anybody in the world who is a clerk, which I spent a lot of years being in my own life on my way to where I am now. And I'm still a clerk in many ways. When you have 8 children, you do a lot of clerking. All right? But today I wouldn't know how to make a comment like that. Today it wouldn't be the beingness, the source of my thoughts, because it's not really about positive thinking. It's more about where do these thoughts originate? And my source of being would not allow me to make such a statement. I'm better than I used to be in virtually every dimension of my life. And I think it's important for you to remember that, to stop thinking of yourself as better than or superior. And it's, again, one of the reasons I have such a struggle with this idea that ridding the world of dictators is worth having a whole bunch of people killed in order to get rid of a dictator. And I always wonder about, why is that one little private who was killed this day and blown up, why is that considered to be better than having this dictator on the planet? Isn't that person's life just as valuable and just as important? And I watch the people with the bodyguards, and I watch the long lines of people with wanting to get autographs from those who are in positions of leadership or in positions of just being noticed, celebrities of all kinds. And remind myself always that there's not one person out there that's any better than anyone else. I remember Gandhi suggesting that the person lays the robe down so that he didn't have to step on the dirt, or on the mud rather. Man laid his cape down so that he didn't get his feet wet. He said, no, he said, you are just as important a being as I am. No one is superior to anyone else. It's something that if we remembered that, then we wouldn't be so willing to sacrifice other people's, particularly their lives. Give up your need to have more. The mantra of the ego is more. I never have enough. The mantra of the higher self. See, the higher part of you, the part of you that's connected to Source, only wants one thing. It just wants you to be at peace. That's all it wants. The part of you that wants more, that demands more, that believes that if you don't have more, you're not going to be successful, you're not going to be happy, is the part of the ego that keeps you from being connected to your Source. Number 6, let go of identifying yourself on the basis of your achievements. You are not what you achieve. You are divine. You are the Source, a piece of the Source. And finally, let go of identifying yourself on the basis of your reputation. You are not your reputation. You are not what others think of you. If I get up there and give a talk in front of 1,000 people, I have 1,000 reputations. And there's absolutely nothing that I can do to change that. My reputation is not located in me. It's located outside of me. The only thing I can be responsible for is my character and my connection to God. And as long as I can suspend that ego and stay connected to this source of all that is, then the ego and the energy systems and the self-talk that are all obstacles to connecting to intention will dissolve. And next we're going to take up this whole idea of our infinite self and then go into these 7 faces of intention and how they can work for you in every moment of your life.